8 reasons your knife martial art sucks and could get you killed. Knife defense systems oftentimes over-romanticize what knife fighting actually looks like, but if you didn't know, knife fighting sucks and you should avoid it at all costs. So we're going to show you 6 reasons why most knife defense systems get it wrong and why you should be wary of them. So let's talk about reason number 1. Every single time I see a video of somebody doing some sort of knife defense, it's always with this over-exaggerated attack. So if he throws like an overhead strike to me, he always has this really big wind-up, and it's so easy to just kind of grab. If he's going to use an overhead attack, it's going to be these light picks over and over, and I'm going to be getting cut and cut and cut. And if I'm doing it to him, I'm going to show you the person who's using this weapon is trying to kill you. And so these attacks are going to be light, and they're not going to be these big open attacks that are easy to block. There's no way to redirect this energy because they're all very, very snappy cuts. Very snappy, very hard to stop. And it's just not realistic to feed something like this when that's not what people do in real life. Reason number 2, most systems do not account for how dexterous a person's hand is actually going to be. So Mike latches onto my arm and it looks like he's won. In most systems, this is it. He's latched onto the weapon-bearing limb and I can't move, or can I? My hand is like a blender at this range, and I'm able to move it and wiggle it in very unorthodox positions. The human hand is a biological wonder. It can move in very, very fluid shapes, and that means that even if he has a 2-on-1, there's a good chance that I'll find a way to cut something unless he has a very, very solid grip of some kind and a very structured stance, maybe with a full arm overwrap. Or you can even do an underhook where the weapon-bearing limb is completely isolated against the arm. But this takes a lot of practice and work. So if he grabs with one hand, absolutely not going to work because I can just move it around. I can also break the grip very easily. So we find that most systems just don't account for the ability to squirm and worm. Reason number 3, no training for realistic violence of action. Real knife attacks are super chaotic. They are very, very violent, and many systems rely on a choreography, some sort of a flow to get their muscle memory up and running. That's all well and good, but if you don't have training for what an actual knife fight is and how violent it's going to be, it's not going to work. So we see a lot of flow drills going back and forth, and that's all good. It gets you good muscle memory, but that's not what a knife attack looks like. A knife attack is going to be a gross motor skill attack, and the amount of skill needed for me to kill him is very low. The amount of skill it takes for him to stop me is extremely high. So he has to match my violence of action with an even higher level of violence of action, and that takes a very special kind of training. Reason number 4, no training for deceptive deployment. Most people are not going to attack you with a knife out in the open. They're going to hide it before they attack, and your knife is also most likely going to be concealed or put away in a pocket, and you need to know how to pull that out in an emergency situation. So the first part of that, most knife attacks are ambush attacks. So I'm going to have this behind my back, I'm going to have it in the pocket, and he needs to know how to differentiate between somebody who is armed and someone who is not, and there's very specific ways you can train that. But if I'm talking to him and all of a sudden I stick him, he didn't see that coming. So he needs to know how to read body language. He needs to know that I have my hand in a concealed position. So when I do whip that knife out, he's going to be able to pike and stop it right away. That takes predictive training. That's not going to happen by just reflex alone. So if your system is not training in deceptive deployment or ambush attacks, you might want to consider trying a different place. So reason number 5, grab and stab defense. This is probably one of the deadliest types of attacks, and it's also so simple. It's just somebody grabbing and thrusting into the body over and over. And this is extremely hard to break if you don't know what you're doing, because most people focus on this knife hand when they should be starting on this one at the same time and dealing with the hand that's tying them up. So learning how to stop this type of attack, very, very, very important, because it's a really common one. Reason number 6, your system does not account or switching of hands. Switching of hands is very simple to do, and it can change the way that an attack goes in an instant. Because he's expecting an attack from this side, it is very easy to switch it up and switch it up and switch it up to this side and over and over and over. And you having to defend those extreme sides gets old really, really fast. But there are ways to start paying attention and predicting when that knife is going to switch hands and go to an opposite way, when someone's going to feint you and go around the back. All of those things need to be accounted for because it's very simple to do, and there are existing knife systems out there that actually prioritize the switching of hands. Reason number 7, no ground or wall training. Most fights end up on the wall or the ground, especially if you're fighting and grappling over an object like a knife. If you don't have training on how to survive and dominate on the ground, you're not training yourself to your fullest potential. You are putting yourself at risk. So make sure that you have some form of ground training. And reason 8, our last reason, overcomplicated techniques. In the chaos of fighting, complicated techniques fail. When we all have plans and get punched in the face, those plans go out the window, and it is no different with a knife. If you have these complicated check block patterns, right? I'm trying to do this, and okay, none of it's working. Why isn't this working? I've been training 10 years in this, and that's because all of these things are complicated. You want to have something that is very simple and brutal. Boom. Something that has a lot of violence of action to it, and something that I can remember under pressure. Under pressure is the key here, because the moment I start getting flurried with fast knife attacks, it's all going to go out the window, especially once he starts switching hands and moving his wrist around in very unorthodox positions. All of that fancy patty cake shit does not work. Hope you guys enjoyed our 8 reasons of why most knife systems fail. I know that this was a little tongue-in-cheek, but there's a lot of truth in what we're talking about. Dealing with realistic knife fighting and knife attacks is a pretty dark subject when you get down to it. If you watch videos of people being attacked with a knife, it's not pretty, it's not glamorized, it doesn't look cool, it's extremely violent, and people almost always die. Knowing this going into it, you should be taking your training to deal with knife attacks very, very seriously, because if it ever happens, you don't want to rely on a false sense of security. You want to know that something works, that it's been pressure tested. I recommend using marking blades and protective equipment, and if you are not sparring at full intensity at some points in your training, you're doing yourself a disservice. So please find a system or school that on occasion implements full pressure sparring. Whatever you do, don't stop training, don't stop working out, be vigilant, and we'll catch you on the next one.